with your letters of recommendation and when you are applying for scholarships. All right? So how many of you applied for Jack Kent Cook? Just closed. All right? How many of you plan on applying for Geist White or some of those big scholarships that are open right now on the Fall Common App? I expect every hand if you're transferring. And if you're not raising your hand, I expect you to be taking lots of notes so that you can train the people who are going to be transferring, right, when you go back home? Okay. All right, so we're going to talk to you about Vitas. We have some do's and don'ts. But what I want you to do while they're passing those out, do me a favor, just flip them over because I don't want you to be looking at those. First off, I want to talk to you about these while we're going to shrink some time here. We're going to make up some time on Vitas. It's not rocket science, okay? It really is not rocket science here. And for those of you who need this handout in a digital form, all you need to do is let me know. We can email the list, the digital format of this as well. But I do want you to have this in hand. The purpose of the Vita, a lot of times scholarships will ask you for a resume, right? They'll ask you for a resume. What they're really looking for is the Vita, okay? If you want it to be formal, you can call it the Vitae, all right? That's Latin for life work. Your Vitae, life work, is not going to be one page like your resume. It doesn't work that way. You go for a job, it's one page, right? Maybe a page and a half if you switch jobs a couple of times. Or if you have one of those jobs that has like 1,000,001 things that you were doing for your job, right? I know mine is like that. I'm like a paragraph and a half, right? For each job I've had. So it doesn't fit on one page, okay? That's not what this is for. This is every single thing that you do, right? You attend meetings. You are an officer or an active member in an organization. This organization, they know you don't just have a meeting and you're done. How many of you go to a meeting and then you're finished and that's it? Yeah, see, not a single hand raised. It doesn't work that way. Even the advisors don't just get to go, oh yeah, I went to a meeting and I'm going home now. It doesn't work that way for them either. But the Vitae, or Vita, okay, we shorten it for Vita, okay? The Vita is also for the advisors as well. Because you guys are going to be writing letters of recommendation. You guys are going to be writing awards for your advisors too, right? We're going to talk about that later. Okay, so they need to provide you with a Vita as well, because you need to know everything they've done too. All right, so here's how this works. On the sheets that I gave to you, you're going to need to expand these, all right? And I can email you the template so you can fill it in. I have worked with headquarters on these Vitas, okay, the template for them. They also have templates for you to use, all right? This one is a little more expansive, all right? But what you can use this one for, and we're going to talk about letters of recommendation in just a little bit, this one is for you to use when you need to talk to someone about a letter of recommendation, okay? You want to ask for that good letter of recommendation, you need to have all the details. If you don't have them, you won't get a good letter of recommendation, okay? So if you're, say, an officer, how many of you are officers within your organization or within an organization? Okay. So do you just go to the meeting and you go home? No, you have to plan, right? And then you probably plan for events and you have activities, right? So every single one of those has a category on the Vita, all right? You need to actually put the descriptions of those activities on there as well. And when I say an organization, I really mean an organization. This is not just for Phi Theta Kappa. This is for any organization that you are part of. It could be, how many of you are parents? Okay, if you're a parent, you might be a parent and your child goes to school, possibly at the, maybe they're school age. So if they're school age, you might be part of the PTA or PTO. Okay, so if you are, you do things with them as well, right? That goes on your Vita. If you are a member of a church community and you do activities with your church community, that goes on your Vitae. That's why it's called life work. If you volunteer at your school, you do service learning, you do different activities. How many of you have had to work for something with the administration? They call Phi Theta Kappa first, right? And you're like, we have like 12 other activities on that same day? Oh my gosh, how are we going to... Hey, you're not in 3 other places at this particular time. Can you cover this one? Right? I know how y'all schedules work. Okay? That also goes on the Vitae. But you need to describe it. So if I'm looking at your Vitae and I'm writing a letter of recommendation and it says, volunteered at Halloween party. Great. Did you take the tickets? I don't know what you did. All right? So I need to know what you did. Yes?
Before we get too far down the road, I have a question about how to think about the philosophy, I guess, of just living back here. So you're talking about a lot of things that are like really helping society, helping other people, and that kind of stuff. And a resume is really about your personal accomplishment or whatever, right? So could you help me understand a little bit more, like, do we want to show our development or look at ourselves personally, or do we want to show what we've done for others? Or is it maybe a combination?
It's kind of a combination of both, but when you're looking at the Vitae, you're really using this to show 2 different concepts. You're showing development and you're showing someone else what you've done, how you've grown, what you've led, okay? Everything that you've done that you can put in there. The problem with the Vitae, though, is a lot of these scholarship applications will say it can only be 3 pages long, or it can only be maybe 5 pages long, all right? So then what you have to look at is what is the application actually looking for within that application, and then you cut down the content in the Vitae. Yes?
Okay, so my personal Vitae is 26 pages long.
That's not uncommon, by the way.
It's not. It has everything in it. Everything. So when I need a letter of recommendation, I pull out the pieces that apply to that purpose of that letter of recommendation, and that's what I give to the letter writer. It's not about giving this giant, massive document to a person and have them sort through it. When you provide that information, you sort through it before you give it to them.
So that's not like a life book.
Right. Yes.
I had a student, she was in my chapter 3 years ago, very active. She emailed me last week and said, can you give me a list of all the activities that I did while I was in the chapter? No. And I'm like, well,
No. I'm sorry, I've slept since then.
if I did, it's not going to tell me what you did. I know you showed up, but I have no idea what you did. Because I keep a list of it.
Right. As an advisor, we can go back and say, well, we know you were active. You did a lot of stuff.
And you showed up and visited and received, I might have that list somewhere, I'm sure I did, but I don't know what you did there.
Right.
And do you really want to go look it up and do the work for us?
I know it's important to do, but I also know that because I may know what you did, but I may not know that you did.
Right.
That's what it's about.
Okay. This document is so important for you to keep up with. All right. And it's not something that you can go back and remember what you've done either. It's something that you have to continuously keep up with. If you host a workshop, if you present a workshop, if you co-lead a workshop, it needs to specify that on there. You also need to describe what the workshop was about. If you attended a workshop, what was the workshop about and what did you learn from that workshop? Right? It's not just about going and sitting in a workshop. Half the time we go to a workshop and then what do? We pull out our phones, right?
I'm taking PTK.
Sometimes we do, all right? But a lot of times we sit there and our phone is next to us And we end up getting text messages which sidetrack us from listening. I teach speech, by the way. Your brain does not do two things at the same time. It does not physically do that. Even though we'd like to think we can do two things at the exact same time. It doesn't work that way. All right? It stops one function to do the other one. So when you're answering that email or that text message, it stops listening. You got 2 ears for a reason and only one mouth. Okay? Listening is actually more important. Okay? So we have to remember when we're dealing with our Vitas, you have to keep these up because you're not going to remember a week from now what you did, all the details of what you've done, say at a leadership conference. Do you remember every workshop and everything you learned at that conference? Did you take your journals with you? I know we talk about journals and honors in action, and you even got little notebooks in your bags. If you didn't, by the way, we do have some extras. Our regional coordinator brought some for you if you need paper. All right. But you need to keep those journals because you don't remember all that stuff. We forget a lot of things very quickly. That short-term memory just kind of brain up very quickly. So that's what these Vitas are for, and they're so important that you keep up with it. Because like Elizabeth said, we don't know what you did. And I certainly don't know what volunteering opportunities you've done outside of what we've been involved with you on. Okay, I can't help you with that. So when I go to write something for you, I can't do you justice if I don't have some kind of document to help. And then when they ask for a Vita or a resume, they are asking for your Vita. Okay? One of the sheets, one of the handouts that I gave to you are some do's and don'ts. There's some tips and tricks. Those were actually given to us, provided by Lori Skillestad and Dr. Molly Harris a few years back. And I wanted to make sure to provide those for you as well. All right. And then on the other sheet, that is just kind of the template of what your, kind of the breakdown of what your Vita should have in it. All right? And then I'll send on the list that we have that you guys are filling out for us on the Excel sheet. Make sure you have logged in and signed in on that sheet, on the Excel, on the computer for us, so that we have your information and your email. I'll send you the template of this so that you can just type in and fill it in. Then when you go to ask for a letter of recommendation, you can tweak it and tailor it for what you're asking for. Then you already have it ready to go, and it'll be easier for you. You have a big challenge coming up when you have your letter of recommendation session, okay? Some of you, I know you've already had this challenge because you've been put to the test by your advisors already. All right, some of you, it's coming. All right. Any questions on Vita? We want to make sure that you guys get a chance. Yes?
As far as like the Vita, I know with the Wall Street Cooper Scholarship, was it important whether or not in like future Vitas, is it important like whether or not we put like the college that we're attending and like our GPA?
Your GPA and your college in that particular sense is space taken up because you have to provide your transcript.
Okay.
It's on your transcript in that one. It just depends on the application. And if it does limit you on the page numbers, look at what they're asking as far as the questions, because sometimes if your letters of recommendation are specific, they're asking this particular recommender to write on this aspect of your achievements, okay? And then you have to write a letter based on this. Then make sure your Vita has some other stuff, because all of that should create the full picture. All right? They're hitting on other things. You need to make sure you complete that picture with your Vita. All right? And we know a lot of you have done so much more than 3 pages. We know that. Other questions? Yes.
On the form here, it says awards and scholarships.
I know several of us have applied for the Jack Kent Cook Scholarship. I applied for it last year. Do I put that I was a semifinalist, or do I only put that if I was actually awarded that scholarship?
If you were a semifinalist, put it on there. Put semifinalist. You bet. If you received a certificate from something, put certificate. You bet. Put whatever you received. If you received a medal, a medallion, something like that, you put that on there. All right. Now again, if those are sections that add lots of length, you're going to have to kind of balance and weigh what you think might be necessary on that application based on what they're allowing you to turn in. But you bet, you put everything that you can on that application, because one of your letters of recommendation may pick up on that and say, oh, this person was a semifinalist in this, and they've done all of these things, been awarded great things, you should too. Something like that.
Do we have like, if we are out of college, a master and representing the whole college as one?
Yes, anything. Everything you need can go in this, on this Vitae. Yes.
So in that line of thinking, then I would think like trade shows, like you go to like an industry conference or
Yes.
something like that. But then, to your point about then what you learn, could you maybe elaborate on that a little bit? Like how would you relate that to, say, a prospective employer? Like, okay, everybody, might have went to the conference, but what's special? about
Well,
that?
now, when we're talking of Vitae, because it's a life work, not necessarily going to be used for an employer.
So different than a CV?
It can be used as a CV. It just depends on what it's being used for.
Okay, so this is a different instrument, basically.
Mhm. A curriculum vitae, if you're applying for a job, you're not going to have all of the activities necessarily. You're going to tailor that to a curriculum vitae.
I guess that's common knowledge that there are different.
Right, there are different kinds, but it would be tailored to that job as well. And you're not purposefully leaving things out. It's just, I wouldn't necessarily talk about my volunteering experience with Keep Irving Beautiful, rather than talking about a trade show that deals with industry for that job, But if I'm talking about something specifically for a job that pertains to, I would talk about maybe what I did for that, what I've learned from it, and how I've grown from it, and how that would apply for that job.
Thank you for the clarification. That's
Right.
more like a resume type.
Debbie, did you have anything to add on that?
No, I was going to say that a curriculum vita is going to be the same thing as a vita. We're going to hear it said that way, right? A curriculum vita is going to be used more when you apply for a job in academia.
Right.
Whereas a resume will be used when you apply for a job in the general sector.
I would say add to that healthcare.
Right.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay. All right. Hopefully that caught us back up at least a tiny bit, maybe a little over because we had some additional. All right, so we're going to turn it over to letters of recommendation. Woo, 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 woo.
Just a few seconds, guys.
You know,